One of the first channels that I became known for is the Kris Krohn channel. I produced that channel for 5.5 years, and boy did I learn a lot. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you the story of the journey and all the lessons that I learned. In this episode, I'm going to dive into the journey that I had in building the Kris Krohn channel. I built it from scratch. It was actually my idea, and it's this channel where I really ironed out all the strategies that I use today. And so there's a lot of lessons that I learned. In fact, there's 14 things that I want to pass on to you so that you can learn from these lessons as well. Now, there is a new feature on YouTube. If you look down at the progress bar, you'll actually see that these 14 lessons are listed as chapters. So feel free to look ahead to those for things that I teach in this video. Okay, today is 2021, so I need to rewind back 7 years ago. I had this brilliant idea. I had proven my YouTube strategy in small scale, but I wanted to prove it on a large scale with an entire YouTube channel following this strategy on every episode. I couldn't sell my packages. I didn't have a track record of success, and I needed to film a lot of videos to do it, so that meant a high budget. Because I couldn't even sell it at cost, I approached some people with an idea, hey, why don't we partner on a YouTube channel? This is what I think will happen, and we can share in future profits. Well, Kris Krohn was the first person that said, yeah, let's do this. Now, something that you may not know if you're familiar with the Kris Krohn channel is I was originally a 100% owner on the channel. His real estate company at the time allowed you to become an independent contractor for them, and when you brought leads to the company, you would get a commission. So the plan was I was 100% owner on the channel. He was obviously an owner in his company, and all the leads that the channel generated to the company, I'd get a split on the commission, and his company would obviously profit. Now, as the channel grew and progressed, Kris saw the potential of this. We changed our arrangement. His company changed, and so we had different agreements all along the way, but that's how it began. So we decided to start a brand new channel from scratch. So 0 subscribers. Today it's over 600,000. And boy, have I learned a lot along the way. The first lesson that I learned and actually confirmed is how to get a video to rank #1 on YouTube. And that's a really big deal. See, I'd kind of proved it in small scale. Individual videos I had ranking on YouTube and outperforming my websites that were ranking on Google. I was getting better results on YouTube. So I came up with this kind of theory, this idea of this tree analogy, and I go into more details. I'll link to a video up here that goes into depth on my tree analogy. But in basics, you have a trunk and branches and leaves. The trunk represents your broad area of expertise. The different branches represent the different categories, and the leaves represent the really specific questions that people are asking. What if we built a whole channel just on leaf topics? We just answer these questions. What will happen? I mean, I know that individual videos will start to get traction, but what if our entire channel starts to dominate that industry or dominate for that whole tree? Maybe the way that I tried to explain that quickly was confusing, but the moral of the story is I learned that my leaf strategy worked. If you do keyword research ahead of time and then you film your videos because you know what the title of your video is, that's the key to getting your videos ranking instantly on the top of YouTube. The second thing I learned from the Kris Krohn channel is filming in bulk. Now, in the beginning, we actually only launched 1 episode per week. We kept at that rate for 2.5 years. Now, the channel grew gradually, and then eventually we went to 5 episodes a week. But even in the beginning, Kris Krohn had a really busy schedule, and so we filmed 10 episodes at a time, and that way we only had to film once every 10 weeks. Now, I love efficiency, and so when we scaled up to 5 episodes a week, I'm like, you know what? Let's see if we can get 4 weeks worth of content done in a single day. And so that's where 20 episodes in a day started. That's what we're doing today. We're filming 20 episodes today. I've got a client coming tomorrow. We're filming 20 episodes. 20 episodes is kind of the perfect amount. It's a long day. It's a marathon of a filming day from 9 to 5, but it's an amount that you can get done if you prepare correctly, and then you only have to film once every 4 weeks. About 2.5 years from the launch of the Kris Krohn YouTube channel, I learned lesson number 3, and that's the frequency of videos. In my formula that has 5 ingredients, ingredient number 5 says you need to post 5 episodes per week. Okay, so here's the story behind that. For the first 2.5 years, we just launched 1 episode per week. We used all the other ingredients, and the channel grew gradually. Okay, we grew the channel from 0 up to 12,000 subscribers over that 2.5 years. Then I learned that something magical happens when you start posting 5 episodes per week. You do that for about 4 months, and then you start to get suggested traffic. That's when YouTube really starts to promote your channel. So I told Kris about this, and he said, all right, let's do a 4-month test. That's a lot of work, but I'm willing to give it a try. So in April of 2017, we started launching 5 episodes per week. And 4 months later, to the day, we had our first spike. We went from below 1,000 views per day to over 10,000 views in a single day. And every other channel that I've produced since then, we've gone to 5 episodes per day and seen the same results. All right, lesson number 4 is my multi-location filming strategy. You may have noticed that this video is kind of filmed in a lot of different locations. I first did that with Kris Krohn. In studying other YouTube channels, in fact, one specifically, there's a channel called Veritasium. A guy named Derek Muller makes lots of science videos. And I noticed that he would film at this university, he'd go out to this other location where there's lots of radiation, or he'd come to Utah and do some science experiments. In watching his videos, I saw that filming in multiple locations made it look like he put more work into the videos. He probably did, and I thought, that's a cool strategy. So with Kris, we would break up the videos and film different parts of it in different locations. It can add a little bit more work. It definitely needs more organization, but the benefit to it is it can re-engage the viewer. So when I change locations or change my shirt, it re-engages you without you even noticing. The 5th lesson that I learned from the Kris Krohn channel is the importance of a written contract. Kris and I were partners on this channel for 5.5 years. In fact, in the very beginning, I was 100% owner, but then we changed our arrangement. He wanted to be a part owner of it, so we came up with a new agreement, and over time, I learned more and more how important it is to have things in writing. Kris and I are on good terms. We're still friends to this day, but there are some things that when we go back, we remember things differently, and we learned that, you know what, if we're going to agree to something, we need to make sure it's in writing. Lesson number 6, I learned what kind of person I am as a business partner. Because working with Kris Krohn over the years, we remembered things differently, and we learned that we had to write things down. And then as the channel grew and took us to new levels, Kris Krohn wanted another piece of the channel, and I learned, am I cutthroat? Am I a jerk? Am I selfish? But I also learned, am I a pushover? Can my arm be twisted? And over the years, I evolved. So I admit, I was kind of a pushover in the beginning. I allowed myself, and I take responsibility, I allowed myself to be manipulated a little bit. On the other hand, I learned that I can be really merciful. There was one conversation that Kris and I had where he admitted he agreed to something that he felt was a big mistake. And it was a recent agreement that we had come to. It was signed in writing. I could have been cutthroat, but I decided to be merciful and say, all right, let's change the agreement. The reason I shared this as a lesson learned is because it really was something important that I learned about myself. And it's not that you know all the details, but being in a business partnership where things got to such a great level of success, it really did force the best or worst to come out of us. And how do we respond? I feel like I made some mistakes along the way, but I've learned and I've matured, and I think both Kris and I are better people because of it. So lesson number 7 is I learned how to make a successful YouTube channel. I only had ideas or theories before, and now I had a channel that was really thriving, really successful. I believed in my strategy, but I couldn't sell it because I didn't have a track record of success. I didn't have a portfolio, but now that I had proven it on this Kris Krohn channel, it not only had a lot of subscribers and a lot of views, but it had a lot of engagement. There was a lot of people saying, hey, how can I work with you? So it was a lead generator. So what I did with this first successful channel is just duplicated it. And I did it on channel 2 and channel 3 and channel 4. So this is where it all started. Okay, number 8, I learned the power of the sequel technique. On the Kris Krohn channel, this is the first time I did the sequel technique. So let me describe it to you and what we did. There was a video called How to Invest Your Money in Your 20s. Now this video had 65,000 views, one of our best performers on the channel to that point. And when I looked at the analytics, I found that it had a lot of suggested traffic. So of all the different ways we can get traffic, we talk a lot about search on this channel. Well, this one was getting a lot of suggested, which means YouTube was promoting it. So I noticed that and I pointed it out to Kris and I said, we need to make a sequel to this episode. We'll make another episode that has the exact same title. We'll make the video a little bit longer. I want you to tell the same story, but go back and watch this first one and we're gonna make this one even better. So by that point, the channel had 80,000 subscribers. And 5 weeks later from launching that first sequel video, the channel grew to 160,000 subscribers. See, why does that work? Well, the algorithm is already telling us it likes this video, so by making a sequel, we can capitalize on that and know that the algorithm is going to push it or promote it out. Lesson number 9. I learned how much ad revenue I could actually make on YouTube. That was never the focus. It's always been about the business and using YouTube to generate leads for the business. So the first way we started to make money on the channel was by selling a course. In month 1 of launching the course, it was a 6-figure month. By that point, we had over 60,000 subscribers on the channel. Over the next several months, we grew the channel up to 80,000 subscribers, and ad revenue was in the hundreds of dollars. When I saw that we were getting suggested traffic, that's when I first implemented that sequel technique, and the channel grew from 80,000 to 160,000 subscribers. And that's when we had our first really significant ad revenue month. We had $18,000 of revenue in 1 month. And going from a few $100s to $18,000 in a month, that's when our eyes opened and we realized, wow, maybe ad revenue is actually significant. It's not as much as lead revenue, but that's a significant amount. Lesson number 10 is I learned how to sell courses on YouTube. Yeah, I thought it was possible, but we actually experimented with it and figured out how to do it right. It's actually really easy to sell courses on YouTube compared to selling other services like consulting or events or coaching or live speaking. A quick story about this with Kris Krohn and our channel. He made money in his business in a variety of different ways, but we really didn't monetize YouTube until he launched a course. In fact, he sold a course for $1,000, and the first month that we announced it to the channel, it was a 6-figure month. Lesson number 11, I learned about selling event tickets. Okay, ticket sales or getting people to come to events. How does that work with YouTube? In the beginning, it didn't work very well. Okay, Kris Krohn loved to invite people to come to his events, and then after 3 days, they loved his training so much that they would buy his high-priced coaching programs or whatnot. But from YouTube, we only had one person in the previous year come from another state to Utah to attend one of his events. Okay, so we thought, okay, maybe YouTube doesn't work to sell event tickets. We launched a course that worked really well. Our first month selling a course, we made 6 figures. But then fast forward 2 years after that, the channel had grown to a much bigger size. And I was having a conversation with Kris, and he said, guess what, Nate? I had 250 people at my event. Okay, this was pre-COVID. He had 250 people there. And he said 90% of them came from out of state. They found him from YouTube. With that first experience and with several experiences since, I've learned the same thing, that in the beginning, don't expect to sell high ticket items or things like events where people have to travel or retreats right from the beginning. Don't expect a huge amount of sales on those in the beginning. You'll be able to monetize a lot quicker with things like courses or things that cost a lot lower amount, but eventually you get to a point where you can sell the big things, even things like keynote speeches. Lesson number 12, I learned how to generate leads from YouTube. And I have to give Kris Krohn a lot of credit for this because he became really good at ClickFunnels and sales funnels. So I knew how to have a call to action in a video, to go to a lead magnet. So people go to a landing page and they become a lead. But Kris took it from there and was really good at optimizing that page. So we had a high opt-in rate and having upsells and downsells and all the magic that he worked behind the scenes. So that first month, we generated $100,000 from selling a course. Months 2 and months 3, we generated $60,000 each month. At first, it was like we had a whole bunch of traffic saved up. So we had a great month and then it kind of averaged out to $60,000. But then Kris Krohn fine-tuned the sales funnel. He changed the offers, he changed the wording, he changed the colors, he changed the videos that we had on those pages. And bit by bit, the ad revenue started increasing month after month. So I not only learned how to generate leads, but I learned how valuable those leads could be. Lesson number 13 is I actually learned how much a YouTube channel could be sold for. Now, I'm actually not an owner or a partner on this channel anymore. About a year ago, I had a conversation with Kris and we talked about a buyout situation. And so I owned half the channel and I learned, wow, this is a valuable asset that I have, and I sold my half of it to Kris. Comparing a YouTube channel, the subscribers that you have or the momentum you build, the audience that you have, comparing that to marketing, it's so drastically different. As soon as you're done marketing, you stop paying those advertising dollars, it just goes away. There's no more leads or anything that comes from it. But when you build a YouTube channel, it's an asset. It has momentum. It doesn't really turn off. So it's a lot of work and there's a lot of investment to put into creating a YouTube channel, but it's really valuable. Lesson number 14 that I learned is how to have a wealthy mindset. Now that's kind of interesting, but I hung around with Kris Krohn quite a lot over the 5.5 years that I produced his channel, and I learned a lot from him. In fact, I wrote down a few things here just as I was thinking, what are all the different lessons that I learned from working with Kris? And this is definitely one. My mindset has changed. I remember when I first went to his home, and by the way, as I was doing research for this, there's a lot of people that ask, where does Kris Krohn live? So I'm not going to share that with you because that's a bit creepy, whoever is searching for that. But I wrote down and I remembered when I first walked into Kris Krohn's home, I was really intimidated. I'd been self-employed for 5 years, but my first 8 years in business, it was a financial struggle, a financial roller coaster. And so being in somebody's home that was really successful, a real fancy home, it was intimidating to me. But then I noticed something interesting. Just a couple of years ago, Kris Krohn bought a new home. So it was even bigger, a more expensive home. But I went into that home and I wasn't intimidated. So that's just one example in a specific way I learned that lesson from Kris Krohn. Obviously, I learned a lot of lessons, and that's why I have so many biases and opinions the way that I do. I teach a lot of things on YouTube saying, you need to do it this way. Well, it's because I've had a lot of experience in learning from my clients like Kris Krohn. So hopefully that was helpful for you. So now that you know the story behind the Kris Krohn channel and all the lessons that I've learned, I really want you to understand my strategy. So I want you to go watch this video next. It's how to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube in a day.